welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. Apologies for being a little late. Um, we were having a bit of trouble getting the game to work with the recording equipment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's why, Petty Fan has Shadows and Dust here. It's not working well with OBS.
Mm-hmm.
And always a pain when that happens. So we get the trailer footage. Anyway, three games up this week. The first of which is indeed Shadows and Dust. Although calling this thing a game may strike some as a bit capricious because it's not really it's in the interactive fiction narrative experience walking simulator school of gaming. Very much so. Only here, this is even more cut down than usual because by the emission of the bullet points of the game, it can be completed in about a half an hour. Maybe an hour at most. Depends on what you do. But
does it have like multiple possible things, or is it just the one "this is your game"?
It's hard to say. Like, there are multiple dialogue trees, but I'm not sure how much they affect everything. And it's also, this game has a very strong central thesis statement that's pretty unavoidable to miss. I mean, by once again the bullet points on the Steam page, this it's got content warnings for suicide, mental illness, and depression.
Fun times.
Yeah, hint: this game is about suicide, mental illness, and depression. It's like it's about. I don't know. It's like I'm not sure a gender is ever assigned to the character, but you are some parent who committed suicide, and you committed suicide on the birthday of your child, the second birthday.
Fun.
That sounds like a jerk move.
I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the whole fucking point of this thing. It's about the guilt this entity is experiencing, purgatory, hell, maybe their own mental space because they were unsuccessful. Those are the bits that are up to interpretation. But what isn't is, and I suppose this is technically a spoiler since this kind of unravels through the course of the experience. But once again, this is a short thing, and this is what this game is about. Dealing with the guilt of leaving this child behind because of the choice to end one's life. So, yeah, some heavy shit.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I didn't want to play this more than once. Because,
Indeed.
It's like, even if the dialogue boxes change things, I'm not exactly sure what they would change because, here's a hint. The sole achievement in this game is obtained by walking away.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you close the game, you get the achievement. I'm like, I'm not sure if this is actually on a never-ending loop because when it ends, it goes right back to the beginning dialogue choices. It could be a 2-loop, maybe 3. It's like I wasn't feeling that adventurous because once again, this is it's short, sure, but it's kind of a dense black hole of content, isn't it? You know, and
Mhm.
in terms of short, like the actual game construction is mostly, um, visual novel segments, let's say, and some first person segments. It's mostly that room you see in the um some of the pictures, some of the trailer, like the really basic room with the bed and the phone and the door, and your interactions there is like talking with the person on the phone, talking person who's knocking on the door, and they say not nice things about you because once again this game is all about the guilt you feel about you know killing yourself. It's like it's not a fun time. It's perhaps a moving experience, but yeah, it's like this game is. If you want to explore some dark themes, this is your game. Otherwise, look elsewhere. I'll say that right off the bat. I mean, as far as
Mhm.
how effective it was in its theming, I'm like, oh, what it set out to do, sure. You know, being, you know, saying that committing suicide is a bad thing is certainly achieved here. You know, how to rectify that, not so much. But I mean, that was kind of the point. Like the choice was already made, and it was all about regret. And it's like I could keep going down this path, but I don't really want to because you know this is very depressing topic material, and you know it's very hard to you know to
So,
foster.
with it being extremely unpleasant, is it still worth going through for the experience, or?
I'm like I'd say factoring everything in because in terms of graphics, like the actual 3D renderings, they're pretty ugly, but that's not the point. It's like graphics, sound. That shit doesn't matter here. It's all about the narrative, and I think it's pretty effective if kind of bludgeoning, like tries to it thinks it's being subtle at the beginning, but the subtlety is set at Sledgehammer and moves up to fucking Wrecking Ball. You know,
Mhm.
like I get what you were going for. It's just I, you know, I could have done with less at the end in terms of trying to get mind fucky. It's like I won't go into those details, but it's like you're not it's like trying to blur the lines of reality was secondary to messaging, I'd say. But the biggest factor here is price. This game clocks in at $3. I'm like,
That's fairly cheap, but like you said, it's like a half hour where you don't get a whole ton of
it's a half an hour to an hour of you know you your character being called a piece of shit in various ways because you killed yourself on your kid's second birthday. I'm like, I can't emphasize enough. If that's the kind of thing that intrigues you, go for it. But if you find that even the least bit off-putting, go play something else.
Mhm.
It's like this really isn't a traditional examination here because you know from an objective level, even for a walking simulator, it's short. You know, it's not even pretty. There's no clever dialogue. There's um, its message isn't exactly affirming or uplifting. Um, and I'm not sure exactly how helpful it is to somebody who is, say, suicidal, because, not for nothing, I don't think, you know, calling somebody in that position, you know, terrible is going to be, is going to back them off the ledge. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, honestly, that's the thing that's really turning me away from this game. Just, I get the intent here, but it felt like too much. It's like, obviously a person who kills themselves and leaves their child to grow up without, obviously we know as a society that's a pretty shitty move. But, you know, calling somebody in that position a piece of shit can often push them over the edge. It's like, so I get, it's on the one hand, I get what you're saying here, game, but it's also, I feel like you're not helping like you think you're helping. So call it a push. It's like, I think this is the part here where the audience, a potential player needs to play this for themselves, to actually go through the entire experience and determine if, where they stand on the messaging here. I'll be honest, this is my standing on the messaging. So, if you want to make up your own mind, then yes, go play this game. Otherwise, be leery about it, or, it's like, if this doesn't appeal to you at all, I don't know, go buy Dear Esther or the Stanley Parable. Anyway, on that note, that'll about do it for Shadows and Dust here. Be sure to tune in after the break, as we will be, well, actually, Galix will be reviewing Gamester 81, Sydney Hunter, and the Curse of the Mayan. Nintendo Switch version.